Olá, olá! Bem-vindos a mais um podcast.
Parecemos dois adolescentes, caraças, com uma câmera na mão, loucura.
Mas já vamos explicar porque é que estamos a fazer isto. Nós, mais uma vez, vamos entrar via Skype em
com
contacto,
alguém no estrangeiro,
em contacto com alguém para além do Oceano Atlântico. Neste caso vamos estar com o
John Sullivan.
E quem é o John Sullivan?
O John Sullivan é o rapaz, o senhor, que ele é um rapaz novo, portanto pode ser chamado rapaz,
sim,
não é?
Ele tem 35 anos.
Que escreveu o filme Recoil, que em português se chama Vingança Implacável. Tem esse curioso título, não é? Muito original.
Isso, para todos os fãs de wrestling, estejam
um
muito
filme.
atentos. Sim,
é um grande filme.
Porque
tem lá o Steve Austin, tem lá o Danny Trejo.
O Stone Cold Steve Austin, diga-se.
O Danny Trejo não faz wrestling, mas
para quem tem 68 anos ainda está em boa forma.
Pronto, é o filme mais recente que nós vamos abordar, não é?
Exatamente.
É um filme de 2011, portanto é um bebezinho, mas como nós tivemos o privilégio de conseguir um bocadinho do tempo do Sr. John Sullivan, e o gajo é um tipo porreiro e cheio de vontade de falar connosco.
Mesmo à maneira, como poucos que temos encontrado por aí.
Vamos entrar em contacto imediatamente com ele e ele vai-nos contar um bocadinho como é que foi a experiência de escrever este filme, vai-nos falar um bocadinho da sua carreira, acho eu.
Nada como ir diretamente à fonte, não é?
Sim, sim. E pronto, e fica assim o podcast, passa a ser esta entrevista com John Sullivan. Vamos entrar em contacto com ele?
Até já.
Até já. Hello everyone, I'm Daniel Louro and this is Paulo Fajardo and we will be talking about Recoil, a 2011 movie with two big stars, Steve Austin, mostly known from WWE, and Mexican descendant Danny Trejo, usually a bad guy in movies, and this is no exception. On the other side of Skype we have the Hollywood next big writing talent, John Sullivan, who I sincerely thank for having the time and patience to chat with us. He wrote he wrote the story and the words that come out of the Recoil actor's mouth, right?
I did, yeah.
So first of all, why is it called Recoil? I know the girl explains it at the end of the movie, but I want you to say more about the idea.
Basically, the whole theme of the movie is vengeance always has what we call blowback. So by with Steve's character taking out these bad guys, he's actually endangering other people. So when he kills the brother of Danny Trejo's character, he winds up putting the girl in danger and the cops in danger. So the recoil is you shoot a gun and it hurts someone, but it also hurts you. So that's kind of where the title came from.
The inspiration for writing this script, where did you get it from? I ask you this because it reminds me of the classics of the 80s. When a good guy seeks revenge for the death of his family, and he goes to a town, and this reminds me also of the 18 TV series when the good guys went to a town and they tried to solve the town problems by taking out the bad guys. Where did you get the inspiration to write this script?
It kind of I love and I know you guys know these movies, the Cannon films of the 80s, Chuck Norris, Cobra, you know,
it's
pretty
not
much
exactly
anything with Michael
idea.
Dudikoff. I love those movies. I grew up on them. I'm 35 right now. I grew up on all those movies. I used to work in a video store. I would just rent them all the time.
That was my dream when I was a kid, to work on a video store.
Tarantino worked on the video store.
So that I could see all the movies that I could get for free.
Yep, that's pretty much what I did for most.
That's the dream of
growing
all
up.
movie geeks.
So it did come from that. I'm glad you saw that, because it really was meant to be a throwback to those classic Chuck Norris, Michael Dudikoff, you know, early Van Damme kind of films. But it also goes back to the Clint Eastwood movies of the 60s, the spaghetti westerns, like you know, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and my favorite is High Plains Drifter, and I wanted to do High Plains Drifter, which is basically, you know, Eastwood going in to a town and cleaning it up, but I wanted to do it with bikers instead of horses. and that's kind of where it came from. If you watch High Plains Drifter and Recoil like back to back, like you'll see how much I ripped off. There's a lot of well, we call it a tribute. We call it a tribute.
Do you know how the movie? Do you know how the movie is called here in Portugal?
No.
It's
translated.
Yes, it's Unstoppable Revenge in English.
Oh really?
Yeah, literally translated.
You know what's weird? That was my second choice. That would have been my other choice. I would have Unstoppable Revenge. Yeah, that's pretty much the plot of the movie.
Can you think about a more generic title like that?
Yeah, I think a lot of movies when they're translated over foreign, the title is always a little strange, But I don't know how that reads in another language. I mean, that might be like a great title in another language, so I don't know. Recoil is this movie actually. Recoil was originally titled Man with a Vengeance, which is a terrible title, and I'm glad I didn't go with it.
How did the movie go in the US? Did it
sold well?
Yeah.
It's
on cable, on video. Is it?
It went direct to DVD, video on demand, and Blu-ray, and I'm proud to say that it's gotten the best reviews of any Steve Austin movie, and I think it's his biggest seller so far. So it's done really well.
We saw that as well.
So hopefully the residuals reflect that.
Here in Portugal, it didn't go very well. It came out at a big price. But in a month space, it plunged from $10. Imagine $10 to $1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wow. I mean, at least people can afford it.
Yeah.
I get like 10 cents for that. So
okay.
I know you never visit the set since you were in LA, and this was shot in Vancouver, right?
Yeah, we shot in Vancouver.
How it was to see your work coming to life from paper?
It was amazing. It's really kind of crazy because I didn't have access to the set, but I tweeted with a lot of the stars, Steve and Serinda, and a couple of the extras and the stunt team. I actually talked to the stunt team a lot. James Bamford and Paul Lazenby, who's Steve's stunt double. They sent me pictures, and it was kind of cool because they would send me pictures of scenes that I wrote, and I'm like, oh wow, that's the car that I put in the script. Like that's the scene where he beats up all the guys in the pool hall. Like they actually shot that, and it's rare to have your script be that to be that much like the film, and they didn't change really a word of dialogue. So everything that you see on screen is something that I wrote. Sometimes the director rewrites the script, but they didn't really do that in this case. So it's actually the purest example of anything I've written. I was really proud of that, and it was cool. And seeing it come to life, one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting is that there's a lot of fighting in the movie. There's a lot of fighting. I mean, the whole movie should be just called just nonstop fighting. And I'm not a martial artist. I don't fight. I sit at a desk all day. But I wrote some of the fight choreography in there in the script. It's actually it's
you
it's
described
specific.
The punch and the kick. And
yeah.
How it was done.
I did.
Uppercut,
And
a hook, left
yeah,
to right.
I actually did. I wrote all that down, and a lot of times you don't have to do that. Like when you write a script, you can just say they fight and just leave it up to the stunt team. But I just decided to do that for fun.
That's funny because on the Return of the Revenge of the Sith, George Lucas
just on paper they fight
and let
they fight.
Yeah, they fight and let the creativity for all the other
stunt guys.
Yeah.
Do you like Vancouver? I see the movie has that snowy, foggy and
rainy.
Yes, environment. Did you saw
Canada.
that in your head before shooting?
The original draft of the script was written for New Mexico. It was a movie that was supposed to take place in New Mexico, and they couldn't get the location. So they came back to me. It was like, we can't shoot in New Mexico, but we can shoot in Vancouver. But they didn't want to say it was Vancouver in the movie So we made it Washington, Seattle, Washington. It's not. I mean, it's Vancouver, but I had to do all this Wikipedia research on what states in North America have the most meth problems, and I came across a real town, which I got some angry emails for people saying like, it's not like that. We don't have like bikers stealing meth. I'm like, all right, fine, but you know, it says it on the internet.
Yeah.
But
if it's on the internet, it's true.
Yeah, it exists. Yeah. It's real.
Yeah. I've read that Randy Couture and Sylvester Stallone were attached to this movie. Is this true?
Yeah. Yeah, it was actually written for Randy Couture. He was the initial. I had a deal with a studio. They were looking to do. This is before Expendables and everything. It was going to be his first movie ever. After he retired from the UFC, he was going to do this film. So I wrote it for him, and that didn't work out. The money fell apart. So the script kind of just sat on my desk for a while, and then my agent, my manager, sent it to Stallone, who was looking to do something after Rambo 4. And Stallone liked it, attached himself to it, but then Expendables came along. And so I never talked to Stallone. This is all through representatives and everything. So I never talked to him. It would have been cool, but I never had any interaction with him. He wanted to do Expendables first, and then another film, and then my movie, Recoil. And the movie still would not have gotten made by this point. It would have been like 6 years down the road, and he also would have completely rewritten me. He rewrites everything that. And
you would be, then you probably would be 75 years old by then. yeah. You know, it's I really want the movie to get made, and when you wrote the script, did you thought about Steve Austin as the main character?
Yeah, he was always the model. He was like the idea that I had in my head for Ryan Barrett, the character. It's just that I didn't think we could get him. I figured he'd be busy. He was still, I think, with the WWE at the time. And he was doing like 2 or 3 movies that he had just done, Condemned, and he had done Damage and The Stranger. And, I thought he had too busy a schedule, and he did. But he and his people, his representatives, really liked the script. So I was really happy. I mean, I got the call saying like, Steve Austin is in your film playing your hero. I was like, because I was a big WWE fan. I watched it all through college. Like, I love Steve and The Rock.
A review on IMDb called this movie a redneck punching movie. Do you want to comment this? Redneck punching movie.
Redneck punching movie. I haven't heard that one yet. That's a new one. I don't know. Yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. But I wouldn't call it a redneck movie because it does take place in North America, Pacific Northwest, which it's more of a meth dealer punching movie, I think.
Danny Trejo is now 68 years old. Were you worried that no one believed the man this age could be so tough? He looks great anyway.
Yeah,
in the movie, he convinces me that he could be that badass.
Ugly motherfucker.
The producers talked to me. I was very interactive with the producers when they were putting the movie together in terms of casting, and they were nice enough to like kind of let me suggest actors for the bad guy, for Drake. I didn't think, again, it was one of those situations where like he works like every day. He does like a movie a week. So I'm like, I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to get him for the film. We looked at a couple other people, Johnny Messner. That we even talked about getting John Cena in it, but Cena was still with the WWE. He couldn't really do anything. I suggested Van Damme. I suggested Michael J. White. A couple other guys, Elias Koteas. But really, Danny liked the script, and he signed on. And I was a little concerned because he's got like 20, 25 years, 30 years on Steve. Like, Steve's a young man. But the nice thing is Danny Trejo is in amazing shape. And apparently, like, between shots, when they were setting up, he's doing, like, push-ups, like, the entire time, just to build up his chest.
Yeah. Well,
that little reference to Machete when he picks up the machete.
Oh yeah,
it was your idea.
that's actually the director did that.
Oh yeah.
Because I didn't know Danny was gonna be in the movie, so the director definitely did that.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought that was cool. I was like, oh wow, that's awesome.
I never saw any of your previous movies. Can you tell us how did you become a movie writer?
How was your first experience? You did Fear of the Dark in 2003.
Fear of the Dark.
You were very young at the time. You still are. But how was this first experience for you?
It was a good experience. I was 22 years old. This is like, ages ago. I was 22 years old, and I was working at a talent agency in New York City, but I was still living at home on Long Island, which is about 45 minutes from New York City. So I had to take the train back and forth, and I had my laptop, and I always wanted to write movies, and I read all the screenwriting books, and I just decided to try it. I wrote a couple of scripts before that, but they weren't any good, and I just wrote the movie on a train, going back and forth to my job.
You wrote also the fourth and the fifth film for the Prophecy series.
That's right. Yeah.
Uprising and remind me the other one. It was Uprising. I have and Forsaken.
Forsaken.
Yeah. Did you have to see the previous movies to get along on that train that was already in movement?
Yeah, it was a little. I was offered a couple different projects over at Dimension, who did the movies. Mimic was one. I was going to do another Mimic 3 and 4, and then Hellraiser was something I was offered. I don't know. I just didn't connect with those films. But then they said, "What about Prophecy 4 and 5?" And I hadn't seen the previous ones, but I love Christopher Walken. So they actually sent the DVDs over to me. But you
didn't get Christopher Walken on the cast, sadly.
No, we didn't. He asked for too much money. He was too expensive. But I wound up watching the first three, and really liked it. I really liked the movie. So I tried to, and they told me, they were like, we don't have Christopher Walken, so you can't put Christopher Walken in it. I'm like, okay. So I wrote a couple other characters that I thought would be cool, and I thought the movies came out really good. They're a little different than the other Prophecies. They were more like spy movies almost. I felt it had a very Eastern European spy movie vibe to it.
Do you feel drawn by the horror genre?
Oh, I've always been a horror fan. Yeah, I mean, the first movie I ever saw was Jaws. I mean, Jaws is my favorite movie. So after that, I just watched every killer animal movie ever. And then just monster films. I like slasher films, haunted house movies. Shark Week's my favorite. That's my favorite week of the year. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I like horror. I don't get to write it as much as I used to. But I like writing. They're very simple. They're easy to write. Comedy is really the hardest thing to write. So I don't write a lot of comedies.
But you wrote Saturday, and it's a comedy. Was it hard for you to write a comedy?
I wrote that with my my producing partner at the time, and we wrote that movie only because he was working in New York City, and he had a lot of connections to bars, and we had 3 bars that we could shoot in, and we just wrote a movie around that. So we wrote it because we could shoot in 3 bars. So that's pretty much why that movie got made, and it won a couple of awards, small New York Film Festival awards, but it didn't really get a good release. But I like it; it's fun. I'm actually in it, so that was kind of neat.
Yeah.
And
if you had the budget for it, what kind of script would you write?
I want to write something like Jurassic Park. I want to do like a
sci-fi, Jurassic Park as in sci-fi movie, or
like a sci-fi monster movie.
Okay.
Our interview is over. It was an honor to speak with you, and I wish you the best of luck in the future.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Any message for the
Portuguese fans?
Yeah.
Of Recoil.
Thanks. All 10 Portuguese fans of Recoil.
Okay. Bye bye, and thank you very much. Okay, John?
Alright, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye bye. Thank you very much. Thank you.